Welcome to another podcast. My name is Glenn Moore. I'd like to start off by reading something to you, something that I picked up online recently that brought my attention. I think you might find it very interesting, and I will develop from there what I believe is something that we could all learn from, potentially, if not now, then in the future. And it concerns primarily the future of humanity, so I think that's important to all of us, right? So, this appeared on a video, one of the Galactic channelings a few days ago. It says, to understand the magnitude of what is unfolding on your planet, you must widen your lens to the galactic perspective of childhood. Let me repeat that. To understand the magnitude of what is unfolding on your planet, you must widen your lens to the galactic perspective of childhood. Across countless star systems beyond your solar borders, the early years of your life are understood not merely as the developmental stage, but as a sacred gateway, a dimensional opening through which new frequencies can be introduced into a civilization. Childhood, in the galactic sense, holds the purest access to higher realms. Young ones across the cosmos possess unfiltered entry into the memory fields of their lineage, to the archives of their homeworlds, and to the interwoven histories that shaped the identity of their species. In many star cultures, the arrival of new souls is celebrated with deep reverence. Councils gather to observe the light signatures of the young as they enter their physical form. For them, childhood is a passageway, a time when the neural pathways, energetic filaments, and crystalline networks are open and receptive to multi-dimensional guidance. These neural pathways are designed to interface naturally with higher dimensional expressions of consciousness. Now, that is a fairly profound statement, of course, and far-reaching. I thought it best to, if you like, scale that down to something a little more bite-sized and a little more maybe manageable. And that is this, which also, by the way, originates from the same video. From Caylin. She says, the children do not need adults that lead by authority. They need adults who lead through alignment. They need hearts that are open. So, this is a reference to humanity, to human children, I believe. And she goes on to say that the future of humanity rests not on global leaders or technological advancements, but on the emotional climate in our homes, which includes, of course, the way that we treat and connect with our children. Now, the very interesting thing for me, it was a wonderful synchronicity that I shared this video with a good friend of mine locally. He and his wife have a young daughter, and it just occurred to me that it might be something of interest to them. And hey presto, I got an email back thanking me for the link and saying in effect that Kate, the wife of my friend Rudolph, had actually been writing Substack articles, including a recent article in which she had had a fairly profound experience with her young daughter. Now, I'd like to share that with you as well. I do have Kate's permission to do that, and it is basically the reason for making this this podcast, because I think it is a very wonderful example of the new child, if you like, the new consciousness of children coming onto the planet. So here's Kate's Substack article. She says, "There's a saying that's been echoing in me lately. You don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. It sounds beautifully profound when you read it, and then life, in its infinite sense of humour, lines up the perfect little scenario to show you exactly what it means. In essence, it's another way of saying that everything is a mirror." And of course, we've talked about the mirror principle on my podcast before. She goes on, "Tonight, that scenario came disguised as a bedtime battle over toothbrushing. My daughter was flat out refusing to brush her teeth. I tried reasoning, I tried humour, I tried all the gentle parenting tools I could think of, but nothing worked. I could feel irritation rising, that familiar tug towards snapping. We were both tired and I just wanted it to be easy. Then, out of nowhere, I remembered something that's become one of my guiding principles as a parent. Yes, but really just as a human. Everything is feedback. It's another way of saying that everything is a mirror, here to help rather than hinder, even if it doesn't feel like that in the moment. It's something I've learned again and again through the law of one and my own journey of inner work. Life is always reflecting us back to ourselves. Nothing is really happening to us, it's all happening for us. Each moment is a mirror showing us where we're out of alignment or where we're being called to love ourselves more deeply. So there I was, standing in the bathroom, trying to reason with a small human who had absolutely no interest in oral hygiene. If you don't brush your teeth, I said, they'll get sore and owie. I carefully avoided mentioning them falling out, no need to plant early dental trauma. That's a job for the tooth fairy. She looked at me straight in the eye and said, I want them to hurt. There's no page for child invites suffering in the gentle parenting manual. And then I remembered, of course, the mirror. This wasn't necessarily about her, it was happening for me. She was being a mirror for me. The question wasn't, why on earth doesn't she want sore teeth? Or why on earth does she want sore teeth? Nobody wants that. But where am I not taking care of myself? And the answer came instantly. Since becoming a mother, I've been quietly putting my own needs on hold. Even small acts of self-care like moisturizing my face feel like luxuries that I can't quite justify. I tell myself there's no time for such frivolous things. There are always dishes, laundry, lunches, bedtime routines, always something else that feels more important. But my daughter's words, I want them to hurt, stopped me in my tracks. It was like hearing my own subconscious speaking through her. My body's whisper of neglect, reflected in the most unexpected and frankly a bit shocking way. It's not that the mirror was saying, I want to hurt myself. Mirrors like this usually need decoding. For me, it wasn't about self-punishment, it was about self-neglect. I wasn't consciously wishing myself harm, but I also wasn't wishing myself well. I wasn't prioritizing care or kindness towards myself at all. I was consciously transmitting a vibration that said self-care was unimportant. So I took a breath. and thought to myself, what can I do for myself right now? Just one small act of self-care. I looked in the bathroom cupboard and saw the face cream I bought months ago, intending to treat my skin, and I had completely forgotten about it. I grabbed it and I said to my daughter, all right, I'm going to put my face cream on. Immediately, almost instantly, something shifted. The tension dissolved and my daughter picked up her toothbrush and started brushing, completely calm, literally just like that. I laughed out loud, and so did she. The moment I began taking care of myself, she naturally began taking care of herself. That's how the mirror works. We can talk about modeling behavior or co-regulation, but at the deepest level, it's all one movement. When I soften, the world softens. When I tend to myself, the reflection changes. You don't see the world as it is, you see and experience it as you are. And when you change how you see yourself and how you treat yourself, everything around you begins to fall gently into place, including, apparently, your child's dental routine. Isn't that wonderful? I was so taken by that story when I read it, having received the link from Kate, actually from Rudolph. It just really clicked. And what really clicked, remember what I said earlier about children not needing adults that lead by authority, but needing adults who lead through alignment. Kate was perfectly exemplifying, if you like, the transition or transformation from leading by authority, which clearly wasn't working with her daughter, to leading through alignment, through mirroring, if you like, or seeing herself in her daughter's mirror, to align with that vibration, with her daughter's vibration and frequency, to enable the transformation, as it were, to take place. And of course, her heart was also open to that possibility. So, you know, it was a wonderful example to me of, you know, how we can change our experiences, reactions, if you like, how we connect with others, how effective that might be by changing our own inner self, you know, recognizing what we see in the mirror. Now, that obviously applies to adults, but I wanted to focus in this podcast primarily on children, which is why I chose this particular example that Kate sent me. Because it seems to me that, you know, whatever you think about the consciousness of new children now being born and incarnating onto the planet, whether you believe any of what I said earlier, the quoted section about, you know, the higher dimensional expressions of consciousness that the new children bring. The truth is that we can all be more loving, more kind, more respectful to our children, not just to our own children. I should add that I don't have any children of my own, so I don't profess to be any expert on parenting. This is just my observation as an outsider, as it were. But, you know, those words, love, kindness, respect, I think really are, not just obviously for children, but really are, if you like, keystones, key components of the future of humanity and where we want to be. And children will bring that in, and they will teach us to bring that in if we're not aligning with it. Do you see where I'm going with this? So again, Kate was a good example of that. So she tried the authoritative approach. Didn't work, right? Now, I'm not saying that the authoritative approach won't work with all children, between the ages of 0 and 7 or whatever, whatever you might come up with. But the possibility is that it won't. And to be aware of that, So it's about aligning rather than being the authority. And of course, this idea of authority is very topical in the adult sense as well, because there has been a lot of talk about personal and individual sovereignty, the importance of it. And part of that gaining, if you like, or reacquiring our personal or collective sovereignty is having no longer to rely on external authority, trusting our own self-knowing, our own intuition, our own guidance, our own discernment as to what is right for us, rather than going to some external person, guru, whatever, professional person, and saying, please help me because I don't know what to do. So this is the new, for me, again, I've mentioned it in previous podcasts, the new way to bring about and to accelerate our sovereignty. And then going back to children, one of my ex-partners has set up a foundation called Words Matter. And it's really about bringing attention, not just to parents, I think to everyone, that children can be seriously harmed, seriously traumatized by being spoken to in a certain way, in a certain, negative way, maybe a aggressive way, the sort of thing, being told off unnecessarily, this sort of thing, the authoritative approach that, mum and dad know best and you better do as we say. You remember the old saying, children are meant to be seen and not heard. From my grandmother's day, let's not go there. But I mention this only because that foundation, which my ex-partner has set up, is potentially valuable for two reasons. One is because, again, it draws attention to something else that I've also referred to in previous podcasts, or one in particular, I believe, about the power of words and how, with the new energies coming onto the planet, we need to be so more careful about what we say, what we think, our acts as well, of course, but confining it basically to the word issue. Why be negative when we can be positive? Why mention the bad? You know what I'm saying. So, and to focus on the good, what we want to believe, what we want to see in others, without judgment, but actually praising children, praising other adults, speaking to them from a place of love rather than a place of I know best and you better, toe the line. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, of course, it goes back to love, kindness and respect. This is about treating children, not just children, but children in particular, with love, kindness and respect. They're not adults, of course they're not. But the consciousness of the children coming onto the planet, if the galactic transmission is to be believed, is of such a higher nature, a higher level, that there's going to be potentially a serious dissonance between an adult and a child if the child is getting words, getting spoken to in ways that are not loving, kind and respectful. And ask yourself, why wouldn't I be kind, loving and respectful anyway? Okay, we can't all be perfect in the moment, I know that, and I include myself in that. But it's like we could keep that in mind, you know. LKR, love, kindness and respect, in all our interactions, but in particular with children, because children will call us out, potentially, you know. Which is a good thing, because then, of course, we can, like Kate, you know, change our behavior to align with the child rather than, you know, the old way of my way or the highway. And the other thing I wanted to mention is something that I got from Eckhart Tolle some time ago in one of his videos. You know, someone asked him, I think from the audience, you know, how do you apply the Tolle philosophy to a child? And what he said was very interesting. He said the best way to be a parent is to be an example to the child. Meaning, you, as a parent, let's say, you demonstrate the behavior that your child can follow. In other words, you behave with your own love, kindness and respect, and not just to the child or to your children, but to everyone. You show your child that, and that's how they learn. It's like, yeah, learning from the parents, because they set the example. And of course, Kate, in her story, is a great example of that example, to coin the phrase, because she realized that she wasn't taking care of herself, admittedly in that moment, and it may have been a longer term thing. And so by demonstrating, by being the example of caring for herself, her daughter could then mimic, if you like, or model that behavior and take care of herself. I know it was only brushing teeth, but that's also self-care, right? So I think there's a lot to be gained from both the Galactic statement that I read at the beginning, and also from not just Kate's example, but, you know, this idea of bringing love, kindness and respect back into our lives in a much bigger way, and treating children from that place, from the heart, with an open heart. As the Galactic quote said, let me repeat it for you because I think it's worth repeating. It said, children do not need adults that lead by authority. They need adults who lead by alignment. They need hearts that are open. Now, I'm sure that not everyone watching this will immediately agree and jump up and down and say, hey, that's great. Yeah, it's something that is either in us at the moment, or we can acquire, the royal we can acquire over time. But as I said earlier, it may be that if you are a parent of a child who is at this advanced level of consciousness, and most of them probably are, I mean, I'm generalizing, but I think it's a reasonable assumption based on what we've been told and what I've shared today, that you may learn more from your child than from what you can teach them. I hope this is of value. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.